Hi everyone. So if you're watching this video and you've never played the game of chess, or if you have just started, you would ideally like to play well, improve quickly, learn some tricks which can help you grow at an exponential rate, and also kind of win some fun games where you can outplay your friends and family. So I'm going to show you some fun tricks which you can use to make the game more interesting for you, as well as to kind of have the last laugh at the end. So let's have a look. So when I started playing chess as a kid, I did not really learn from anybody at first. I just went for my first tournament because all my friends were going, and pretty soon I realized that knowing a little bit really helps you a lot. I'll tell you how. So in my first game, uh, I remember my opponent played something like e4. He was white, and I was just new to the game, so I did not really understand the principles. And I remember playing something like b6. My opponent played bishop c4, and I played something like bishop b7. My opponent played queen f3. And now I remember thinking if I should bring this knight here or playing something else, but just out of random choice, I played my this knight up the board. And pretty soon, to my horror, I realized that I had lost the game in four moves. And this is known as the four move checkmate or the scholar's checkmate. And this is one of the most elementary ways to win for a beginner uh, and to lose as a beginner as well. However, it's actually much more effective than it looks because it may feel that I did not know anything at all, but these sequence of moves are effective against almost anything that your opponent does. For example, e4. Now let's say your opponent even copies you with e5, uh, bishop c4. So you see you're taking your bishop and pointing it towards the square where you're going to checkmate your opponent finally. So let's say your opponent plays d6. Now queen f3. Again, you see the same configuration of the pieces, and they both are pointing towards f7. And after knight c6, you can checkmate your opponent with queen f7. And this is an amazing way to win the game. It's very quick, and it can take your opponents completely by surprise. So now there is another checkmate I'm going to show you here. So this is only applicable if you are black. So if your opponent has not really studied chess at all, they might go for something like, let's say, f4. Uh, you can just play e6. If they go for f3, then you can also go for e5. So let's say the move f4 here, you go e6. So what you're doing is you're opening the diagonal for your queen, and if your opponent is cooperative enough to go g4 here, because he thinks, well, I pushed one pawn, why not push the other? Well, he will regret pushing that pretty soon because queen h4 is actually checkmate and the king has nowhere to go, and white is going to lose just in a couple of moves. So these were two checkmates that were very, very quick. Now I'm going to also show you one more interesting pattern. So let's say white plays e4. Now, why do I suggest playing something like e4? The basic thing is, let's say you play something like h4. This is something which I myself played when I did not really understand chess at all. The reason I recommend e4 is because, uh, first of all, this pawn is on the edge of the board. Now, it's a no-brainer that the influence of this pawn over the entire board of these 64 squares is minimal because it's it's on one corner and it only covers one square because the pawns capture diagonally. So it doesn't really have that much effect, and it only enables one of your pieces, the rook, to enter the game. And as the rook is of higher value than the bishops and the knights, these are these pieces. So your opponent can immediately play d5 and just cover this square, and no longer can you play rook h3. So the best way to develop here is playing the pawn in the center. So now you compare it. First of all, it brings two of your pieces into play, and this also enables you to go for that scholar's checkmate that we just saw. Secondly, it has more influence. You can see it covers two squares. And thirdly, it also keeps your position more solid. For example, if you play the pawn to h4, suddenly it's more vulnerable to attack because uh, all black has to do play e5. Let's say you play g4 and black plays bishop e7, and suddenly even this pawn is under attack. So it's better to just play e4 and play in the center, because the center is where you will have the maximum influence. The center is comprised of these four squares, and this is the best way to play. So now let's say black plays e5. Now we saw bishop c4 as one option, where you go for this configuration and try to checkmate your opponent quickly. The other idea is queen h5. So now this looks a bit weird, but it has a very clever idea. So from black's point of view, I'm going to flip this board, and that will maybe help you understand a bit. You look at this move and suddenly the first temptation is to just kick the queen away. Like, this queen is close into my position, I just need to push it away. And the natural tendency is to play this move g6, when suddenly after queen e5, you see there is a check and the rook on h8 is hanging. I myself have won many games using this technique when I was a kid, and black has to somehow defend. He can play bishop e7 or queen e7. Let's say queen e7, you just capture the rook for free. Black does win one or two pawns, but it's nothing special. You just play bishop here or even knight here, and here black is completely lost. And let's say your opponent is slightly less cooperative and he decides to target your queen with the knight. Even then, uh, you capture the pawn and you simply win a pawn for free. And if your opponent is like very cooperative, he might just play king e7 on a good day, and then this is actually checkmate. So these were some fun moves to know as a beginner. If you're starting the game, if you're curious about the game, try to play these moves out over the board against somebody or even online, and you will see many of your opponents fall into these traps, and it will be a really fun experience for you. And if you like the video, do like and subscribe, and you can look for other videos on my channel.